Today's story is about a serving police officer in North Wales, UK, who used his police knowledge in an attempt to get away with murder. But before I share this with you, if you're a fan of true crime, mysteries and the unexplained, then don't forget to like and subscribe, as we will be posting a new story at least once a week. On the evening of the 3rd of January 1993, a young couple were travelling along a lonely stretch of the A550 just outside the village of Harding at Tinkersdale Wood, North Wales. Little did they know what they were about to discover. The couple stopped abruptly as they discovered a car accident and quickly called 999. They explained that a vehicle had left the road and was down the embankment and had crashed into a tree at Tinkersdale Wood. As a result of the phone call, the police and other emergency services rushed to the scene. When the police arrived at 10:40 p.m, they found the dead and battered body of a female. She was partly immersed in a stream and close to her damaged Austin Metro car. The front and side windows of the car were shattered and the driver's door was open. Close to the car, a lump hammer was found in the undergrowth. During inquiries at the scene, the investigating officers quickly found out that the victim was 37-year-old Madeline Jones. She was the wife of a serving police officer, Stephen Jones. Stephen Jones was a 34-year-old and lived in Ewlow, North Wales. He was married to wife Madeline and the pair had 2 sons together. At that time, he was a serving police sergeant with 17 years on the force and lived around 1.5 miles away from the scene. Officers went straight to Stephen Jones's home to inform him that his wife had been involved in a fatal accident and to provide him and his family with support. Taking charge of the investigation was Detective Superintendent Gareth Jones, Deputy Head of North Wales CID. As police inquiries continued at the scene, officers started to become more suspicious. They noticed that the driver's seat was set too far back for Madeline to have been at the wheel. Her feet wouldn't have been able to touch the pedals, as she was only less than 5 feet tall. Officers also noted that the car windscreen was broken. However, forensic tests performed at the scene revealed that her head injuries were inconsistent with a road accident. There was also no glass in Madeline's hair, which is extremely odd after a road accident. Dr. Waite, an experienced Home Office pathologist, was called urgently to the scene of the accident, which he reached at about 4:20 a.m. on the 4th of January. At about 05:45 hours on the same morning, he performed a post-mortem on the body of Mrs. Jones at the Wrexham Mailer Hospital, where her body lay. To the inexperienced eye, it may have appeared that Mrs. Jones's injuries had been sustained in the motor accident. But police investigating the scene were suspicious that the accident was not genuine and that Mrs. Jones had not suffered her injuries as a result of the car crash. Dr. Waite also formed the clear conclusion that her death was not the result of injuries sustained in a motor accident. Detectives' suspicions were raised as all the clues at the accident scene began to point to the unthinkable. The crash was not an accident and Madeline had been murdered. Within days of her death, her husband Stephen had now become the prime suspect, and detectives attended the home of Jones for the purposes of a search. Officers had been present with Jones at his home since the incident, which meant that he had no time to be alone and dispose of any evidence. During the search, officers soon discovered in the boot of Stephen Jones's Rover his blood-stained riot helmet, as well as his truncheon, which still had traces of blood on it. Jones was arrested on the suspicion of murdering his wife. Jones insisted that his wife's death was a result of an accident and firmly denied he had anything to do with what happened to her. The investigation that followed will unearth a tale of deceit, greed and infidelity that pointed to an inescapable conclusion. Stephen Jones had killed his wife and used his police knowledge to try and get away with it. Evidence that detectives uncovered is that Stephen Jones was involved in a secret affair with a teenage barmaid. He had wanted to get rid of his wife, but feared that the cost of a divorce and the effect it might have on his chances of promotion. he stood to gain a substantial amount of money from insurance policies that he had taken out on her life. The last one was taken out 2 months before he murdered his wife. On that fateful day, Stephen Jones lured his wife out of their house and into the garage, pretending her brother had suffered a heart attack. He callously murdered her with a single blow from his truncheon, leaving traces of his wife's blood on it. Jones, who was 6'1" and 19 stone, cruelly put a bin bag over his wife's head to stop any blood getting on his clothes or on the floor. He put Madeline's body in her Austin Metro car and drove it to Tinkersdale Wood, wearing his police riot helmet to protect himself from injury as he drove down the embankment and crashed into a tree. He placed her body into the stream and then calmly walked away to his own Rover car, which he had earlier parked nearby whilst he was on duty. But Jones's plot had failed, and as well as other mounting evidence, he left the driver's seat position fully pushed back, which would have more likely fitted his 6-foot frame, casting doubt that a 5-foot woman drove that vehicle herself. 16 days after his wife's death, Jones made a voluntary statement. Up to then, he had resolutely denied any involvement in his wife's death and had maintained the fictional story of a motor accident. He now admitted that his previous statements were not true. However, his new statement was also quickly disproven by detectives and experts involved in the case. The murder trial took place in Carnarvon Crown Court in November 1993. One of the witnesses, Dr. Waite, the Home Office pathologist, gave evidence, and he stated there was a blunt trauma to the left side of the forehead. The shape was inconsistent with hitting the windscreen, but was exactly what you'd expect if someone had been struck by a police truncheon. His opinion was that the lump hammer found at the scene of the crash played no part in causing the death of Mrs. Jones. The jury took 3 hours and 35 minutes to convict Jones. He was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison for the murder of his wife before faking a crash to make her death look like an accident. The prosecutor told the jury the murder was carefully and deliberately planned using his police experience. Sentencing Jones, the judge said, "That woman did nothing to affront you. She did no wrong. She bore your children, she loved them, and she no doubt loved you. You destroyed her life. You have not perhaps destroyed, but you have wholly undermined those boys' lives. It is quite plain there is only one person you love, and that is yourself. The sentence for you is life imprisonment." Thank you for listening.